Hey Shani, I'm Aaron.
Hi, Erin. It's so
Haven't we
great.
we've talked before, haven't we?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
and I? Okay, yeah.
yeah. So great to speak with you about this
Great to
movie.
it's great
I,
to speak to you too. I appreciate it.
I just loved it, and it's long overdue. And I'm so glad that you were the one to make it. What? Why did you
Wait,
want?
wait. It's okay with me if we end the interview right there. That was perfect. What more needs to be said?
um,
Go ahead.
well, I guess what I wanted to know is why you wanted to tell this story, and was it personal to you in any way?
Ultimately, it becomes personal. They all do. But what happened was, I think it was about 5 years ago, our producer, Todd Black, asked for a meeting. He asked me if I want to write a movie about the relationship between Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. And uh, all he was really able to tell me at that meeting, or all I remember, I should say, is telling me that Lucille Ball was accused of being a communist, which I never knew. And I left that meeting thinking, I wonder if I'm the only one who didn't know this. So I kind of asked around, and it seemed like nobody knew that she'd been accused of being a communist. So that got me interested enough to have a second meeting with Todd Black. And over the course of the next 18 months, we'd meet maybe once a month, once every 2 months, and he'd toss more information at me that would then make me want to read somebody's book and somebody's autobiography, that kind of thing. And then I got this idea for a structure in my head, having it all take place in one production week of I Love Lucy, Monday table read to Friday audience taping. And it was at that point that I started to feel like this might become a yes, which it did. It took 18 months for me to commit to it. It's not unusual for me to take a while to commit to something just because it's going to be a big commitment. It's going to take a few years to write. There's going to be a lot of agonizing and misery and climbing the walls and pacing around and certainty that it's never going to get done, that kind of thing. But that's how I got into it.
Really, there's a lot of pacing and agonizing for you.
It's mostly pacing and agonizing. Okay. I mean, I've been asked if I ever get writer's block. My default position is writer's block. I have occasional bouts of having an idea that's writable.
Okay, well, that's very relatable to me, and I'm
I'm
sure
sure.
as well. Um, I do want to talk a little bit more about your structure because I'm just in awe of it. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, we're dealing with her pregnancy. She suspects that Desi is cheating on her. And
Right.
there's the
And
Chronicle headline. Now, I know all of that didn't happen in 1 week.
mhm.
Maybe you can tell me about why you put all of those things into 1 week's time.
um, what you just did with your hands, like that, that's why. Uh, if you imagine taking a tangerine, okay, and as hard and as fast as you possibly can, squeezing it, a lot of juice and pulp is going to fly, right? I believe that the same applies to drama. That if I really like compressing time and geography. I like that claustrophobic feeling. Um, they say, when you're bringing home a new puppy, they say to get a crate that's only big enough for the dog to be able to turn around in, but no bigger because the puppy feels a sense of security from that tight space. I'm the same way. That's why I write things mostly that that are people talking in rooms. I want to get as close to real time as possible. So if I can do it without perverting history, without defaming anyone, which I was able to do in this case, I'll do it. I'll do the tangerine squeeze.
Now, I read that you said you prefer truth over accuracy, and I'm wondering if you can explain what that means.
Sure. Accuracy it's the difference between accuracy is a photograph and truth is a painting. Okay. Accuracy is what's required in journalism. Um, there's I'll give you an example from a different movie, if that's okay. In The Social Network, uh, There's an early scene. It's the second scene in the movie when Jesse Eisenberg, Mark Zuckerberg, starts blogging about this bad date that he just had. He's very angry, and he starts to hack into the student directories of the different dormitories at Harvard because he's going to create this hot or not website, Face Mash. I had his blog from that night, and he tells us that he's drunk, and so does Jesse Eisenberg in voiceover. He says, so what if it's a Tuesday night and only 9 o'clock and I'm inebriated, and goes on from there. So I wrote a scene where Mark Zuckerberg comes into his dorm room. We're on his computer. Believe me, I'm going to get to the end of the story soon. Powers up his computer, walks out of the frame. His hand comes back in the frame, puts a glass down, ice goes in the glass, vodka goes in the glass, orange juice goes in the glass. All the while, we're under his voiceover, talking about this terrible woman he was just with. The woman was not at all terrible. It was Mark who was terrible. And he begins typing. About 2 weeks before shooting started, we found out that he was drinking beer that night, Beck's to be specific. So the director, David Fincher, said, Aaron, we've got to change it to beer, Beck's. And I begged him, don't. First of all, vodka and orange juice, making a screwdriver, is more cinematic than beer. We're not defaming him or perverting the truth. We're not having him do a line of cocaine, right? I would never do that. And drinking a beer doesn't necessarily read to the audience as drinking to get drunk. It can just be a college kid on a hot Tuesday night is thirsty and goes to his mini fridge and gets a beer. I lost that argument because David Fincher is a genius. One was accurate. The other was true. Okay? The beer was accurate. Making the screwdriver, drinking to get drunk, was the more important truth of those two things. So you don't want to sacrifice truth in order to be accurate.
So you've obviously written several biopics, some of the best of all time. This is more than a biopic. It's about a marriage, about a show. Are there rules, other rules besides the truth and accuracy thing that you have to follow when you do biopic?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I try not to write biopics. I try not to write. It's very hard to shake. With a biopic, it's very hard to shake the structure that's so familiar to audiences. The cradle to grave structure of this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and it ends up feeling like a greatest hits album instead of a story or drama. So instead, I'll try to have the whole thing set in 1 week. And what can we get out of that? With Steve Jobs, it was 3 acts in the 40 minutes or so before a new product launch. And I'd cram all these problems that he had, which didn't all unfold backstage in the 40 minutes before a product launch, put them there. If I have a rule, when you're writing about real people, you have an internal compass. If your internal compass is broken, the studio's legal department will be happy to help you fix it. But like I said, just using that social network example again, I wouldn't defame anyone. I would never have had, like I said, I would never have had Mark do a line of cocaine. I wouldn't defame anyone. I wouldn't pervert history unless, listen, I love the way Quentin Tarantino perverts history. How he doesn't mind coming up with a new ending for World War II that's more satisfying than the actual ending, or coming up with an ending, for the Manson family that's more satisfying than the actual ending. But he advertises that that's what he's doing as part of the fun of what he's doing. But you have to be careful. You have a responsibility when you're writing about real people. You can really mess with their lives, and you don't want to.
Do you ever feel like a connection to the people, especially if they've past, like a spiritual connection, or you hear their voice in your head? It sounds a little odd, but I'm just curious.
No, it doesn't sound odd. The answer is yes, I do. But I suspect that the connection that I'm feeling isn't to them, it's to the version of them that I've written. I would constantly say, I didn't have to say it constantly, I would frequently say to Javier and Nicole, just play the characters in the script. Pretend this is fiction. Just play the characters in the script. And I've said that to other people playing real people. Once I'm done with all the reading and all the research, once I'm done with the 21,000-page trial transcript from Chicago 7, that kind of thing, once I'm ready to write, I kind of leave all that behind. I trust that it's in my bones. I trust that it's in my bloodstream. And I start to make these characters my own. And I think that that's who I'm feeling a connection with.
I see. As screenwriters, especially if you go to film school, they tell you, write short, snappy dialogue, just the headlines. But you've managed to write lots of dialogue. How do you make that work? What is your advice on dialogue?
Well, my first piece of advice would be ignore whatever teacher is telling you that. I don't know where in the world that kind of advice comes from. Here's the thing about screenwriting. There are parts of screenwriting you can teach and parts that can learn, that you can learn. In fact, the most important parts, which is to say intention and obstacle. That's what drama is, intention and obstacle. And the parts of drama, exposition, inciting, action, action, reversal, climax, denouement, hitting all those things. You can teach that. The part that you can't teach is what we usually mean when we refer to talent. And that part is style, whether it's structural style or the kind of imagination that Quentin has or that Charlie Kaufman has, that kind of thing. And I really like language. Dialogue sounds like music to me, and I love that. And what it sounds like is just as important to me as what it means. So that screenwriting teacher who said just write the headlines, write short, snappy dialogue. Yeah, that's probably true for a superhero movie or something. But even there, why not have good dialogue? I don't understand that advice that teacher was given. My advice would be, it's going to take you a little while, but discover your style. Discover the voice that you write in, and don't run away from it. It's what makes you you.
That's great. The other difficult thing I think a lot of emerging writers struggle with is subtext. Do you think about subtext, or is it just come naturally to you when you're writing?
I think it's something that if it's going well, if you're writing well, if you have all the things in place like intention and obstacle, then subtext is going to come along with the stylish dialogue.
Okay. Let's see. What do you think it was about Lucille Ball that she was able to transcend all of those gender norms and become such a powerhouse? It's a thing that women are still struggling with in Hollywood.
Yeah, not all that much has changed when you think about it. Lucille Ball was the most powerful person in television in her day, but oftentimes she understood that she couldn't act like it. She says in the film, I navigate male egos for a living. She knew that if she exercised her power with a broad brush, that it would make these very powerful men nervous, and they would deal with her somehow. She had a great teammate in Desi, for all the flaws that he brought to the marriage. But Desi was a great protector of Lucy and her talent and her power.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was always a pleasure talking to you.
Yep, I can't wait to talk to you about the next one. So
Me too. And please tell your audience to ignore that advice from that teacher who, with the strange dialogue advice. Ignore it.
we'll absolutely tell them. And because you said it, they will. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Aaron.
Bye.
Bye.